record on this computer. Okay. So with regards to, while people are trickling in, let's just talk about some general advice things first while I get things set up. First off, this is, so for those of you who are like graduating this semester, congratulations. You know, I'm glad that you are done and I wish you the best. You know, if you need a letter of recommendation from me, I typically hand those out to students who get A's. If you had a B or B plus in the class, that's a bit iffy, but it depends on the exact circumstances. And if you know, the more of a working kind of, the more you kind of met with me over the semester, the more I'll be able to help you there. You know. So let's talk about how so first things first, let's talk about how the curve works in this class, because there is a curve. There's always a curve in this class, but it's not necessarily what you expect, but it's not going to hurt. So if you check out the syllabus, right? If you check out the syllabus, what does the syllabus say? 90 and above is guaranteed an A. Okay. You know, if you get greater than or equal to 90, then you are guaranteed to get an A no matter what, right? That's what the syllabus says. Same thing with B. With an 80 or above, you're guaranteed a B. You know, you're not guaranteed a B minus or an A minus in those cases. B's or A's at those levels. Okay. So the way my curve works is kind of off of fairness, what I believe to be fair. Not necessarily off of any mathematical equation, but of fairness. What I do is when everything is all said and done and graded, I sort without looking at your names, I sort your grades from highest to lowest. Okay. And then I just kind of look down and I look at the grades and I like 90, 91.7, 91.6, 91.4, 91.3, 90, and you know, stuff like that. Let's go ahead and get closer to the point I'm talking about. 90.3, 90.2, you know, 89.9. Now, 89.7. Now, I think there's the consensus is for everybody sitting here that there doesn't really seem to be a really good that it would be completely arbitrary that this would be an A and this would be a B, correct? That's pretty arbitrary. Other than the tens digit change place. And I agree, that's pretty arbitrary. So what I do is I look for stuff, and let's see, we go down to 88, and this is what typically happens throughout the semester. 88.8, 88.6, 87.2. So I look through my grades, okay, until there's like a point where, you know, we were getting a couple tenths of a point here, but here we've got like a 1.4 point gap, right? It's a much more substantial gap than anything else. So I look for a kind of gap like that, and then I'll draw the line there, the dividing line between the A's and the B's. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? So I look for a gap. Okay, now what's going to differentiate is that, now that being said, what differentiates these grades from the ones who are 90 and above, these will be the A minuses. And if you're right below that dividing line, that's the pluses. Make sense? So minuses meant you got bumped a letter grade, and pluses mean you were almost there. Okay. This is what I find to be usually to be fair. Now, a word of warning: most people in this class get A's and B's. There's not too many C's in this class. C's and generally speaking, to get it, you need a 70 or above to pass the class. To pass, okay, to get a C, you need a 70 or above to get a C. It's very rare that that I bump anybody in the 69 range. up to a passing grade. Now that being said, if you've been coming to your lectures, turning in your homeworks, but absolutely getting destroyed on those exams, the worst you can get in this class if you tried is a D. That is the worst, absolute worst you'll get in class. I reserve Fs for students who cheat, students who don't turn in work, students who don't try. Make sense? Now, the reason for this is actually not really, it is kind of both laziness and kind of an ongoing fight I have with the financial aid office, because they have sometimes given me contradicting instructions on what I need to do when reporting students who get an F, but make it all the way through the semester. Like they tried and they failed. I had an instance where basically the instruction said, okay, you got a student who has an F, but they tried all the way through the semester, right? If they get an F, you need to put in the last date of attendance for FAFSA purposes, right? You know, to make sure that they were actually attending school and, you know, using the money they got from FAFSA for school, as opposed to just kind of getting the money and never attending class. It's just a compliance thing. And they said, if the students made it all the way through the semester, leave it blank. You know, if they attended the entire semester, leave it blank. Well, on their end, they said, oh, the students got a blank. So I guess we have to assume they quit halfway through the semester. So we'd like half of their money back, please. Half of the financial aid money back. And that was an issue for that student to resolve that involved me having to go down to the financial aid office and have a very stern talking with them about that and why they weren't accepting my emails as verification that they were there, or my letters. So that was just that was a very frustrating use of my hour. But also, like, again, I feel like if you've tried, you probably learned something. A D will impact your GPA just a bit less, and it will, and more importantly, for the purposes of what we really care about, D's mean that you can't go to the next level in this class, you know, or as they say, D for done. So, you know, we're done with the class. So anyway, the point being is I give Fs very sparingly. Now, that being said, I want to point out that around this time might be the time that you are extremely tempted to take shortcuts and copy paste code and cheat, you know, use code that you don't write. Please don't, you know, try to cheat and think that you're going to get away with it. I catch people every semester. And I know that there have been some people who have been doing this semester, and I just can't be bothered for part of that to go out and, you know, confirm beyond a reasonable doubt, because I do use that standard for myself when I'm if I accuse students. And if I, you know, so don't, please, because if you check the front of my syllabus, I keep a running tally of how many students I have successfully charged and have had an academic dishonesty initiated against them. So please don't. If you're having trouble, please let me know. Also, if you just, you know, if you're for your final project, if you're following code online, just be sure to cite the code. And if you take if you're, you know, following somebody's direction, some tutorial, cite that, then do something else to make it your own. You know, make it your own. So, you know, I'm not saying like take somebody else's stuff. I'm just saying, like, if you find useful functions for like movement or gravity or something like that, you should, and you're like, I want to use this, cite it. You know, that's what you're supposed to do in an academic setting. Because at that point, it's no longer academic misconduct, even if I don't necessarily feel like, you know, I might have disagreements on the amount that you take. But at this point, we're having a legitimate kind of, okay, what's the right amount versus academic misconduct where you are misrepresenting somebody else's work as your own, which I have very strong feelings about. All right, I've got a question in the chat. How would one cite code? That's an excellent question. Generally by honestly, this isn't MLA or anything like that, for just simply put a comment in either your README, either mention it in your README file. My preference is that wherever you put the code in your own code, put a comment with the URL and say you got it from there. You know, that seems to be, because, you know, that you're kind of limited in formatting there, and often you don't know who wrote the code. And if you did, sometimes it's a random username, and sometimes that username isn't very polite, so not exactly stuff you'd want to list in your academic stuff. Okay. So overall, then again, the long story short, for those people coming in, I look for a fair breakoff point to differentiate between the A's and the B's. For the past like 7 semesters consistently, the breakoff point has been 88. Okay, that's where it's been 88. It's where basically 88, 89 were A minuses and 90 and above were A's, and then around like 77 and above were B minus. 77, 78, 79 were B minuses. That's where it's been for the past couple semesters. If you scroll up far enough in the Discord, you can probably find it from from a couple semesters ago, since I post that rubric everywhere. Now for grade calculations, right now, what I'm going to do is I have to. So your exams are worth 30%. So right now, before I drop the exam scores, I've got to do something weird, which is I've got to take, okay, how many points were your exams worth, your solo exams worth? How many points were your group exams worth? And then I've got to split them off into categories so they count appropriately for when and this is just simply so when I do the dropping, that I drop a single group exam and a single solo exam. Make sense? So you don't end up getting 2 solo exams dropped, as much as that might help your grade. So you'll see something weird going on close to the end of the semester. If you have any issues with my calculation and you think I did it wrong, I won't be offended if you think I did it wrong. And I'm always willing to hear arguments that involve math. As far as like extra credit at the end of the semester, I don't do that. Sorry, that's just not fair, and that's more work for me to do. And I don't have the time for that. Okay. Final project. So if you haven't turned in the progress report, please do so. And that was due last night. If you didn't turn it in, no problem. Just be sure to do. I know that might have slipped. That's probably slipped at least a few people's minds here. No worries about that. Just turn it in today then. Just upload just download and fill out the markdown file. If you had to like make changes to your project and say I needed to cut back or pivot a bit, as opposed to completely changing your project, but like if I needed to like adapt a bit, this is a great place to bring it up, to temper your expectations. So be sure to fill that in. If you have not given me your project proposal at this point, like you didn't come and meet with me about what your final project is, it's a bit late for that at this point. In the syllabus, I say that's actually, at this point, it's a failure on it's an automatic failure on the final project because there's not enough time left. I was meeting with people very late last night to make sure that there was, that we could take care of this. There's not much time. If you haven't started yet and haven't even done a proposal, there's not really enough time. If you haven't started yet and you did do a proposal, got an exciting weekend ahead of you, I guess. So so with regards to turning in the final project, let's go over that right now. First off, if you don't finish your final project, like it's like 10 o'clock on Monday, which is when it's due, it's due Monday at like 11:59. If you get to that point and you're not done yet, and you feel like, what I want you to do, the correct choice is to turn in what you have. The incorrect choice is to not turn in anything, okay? Turn in something. Make sense? I want to see what you had, even if it didn't work. If I see that you made a significant effort on this and you really tried, you're probably going to pass, even if it's completely broken, okay? Are you going to get an A if it's completely broken and not working? No. But are you going to fail? No. Again, the point of this was to basically see, to give you the ability to try something and the flexibility to fail at it if you needed to, but also like, to see if you could succeed. But in most cases, I see people succeed at this. In the vast majority of cases, the grade is an A. Again, the rubric for this wasn't the most demanding rubric, right? It's like if it entertained me, you got an A. essentially. And I mentioned I'm very easily entertained. Okay. So how does this work? First off, please submit a link to your GitHub repo where it's hosted. You should also submit a 1 to 2 minute video detailing your project. You can upload that to Canvas or link it somewhere or you can provide a link in your GitHub page for it. This is very, very important. Make sure, you test that link in that video, because I'll go over when our final is in a bit, but I don't have much time to go between grading the final projects and letting people know which people have the best and therefore are exempt from the final exam. Okay. So, your video is it's not like a demo. Instead, it's a walkthrough, slide, screenshot, voice over, or a live action demonstration of your code. Just, the point being is that it's a general overview, not a technical overview. Basically, if you wanted to show your parents or your siblings what you did this semester, that kind of level of what you would want, as opposed to me, who would, I can check the internals if I'm interested to see how you did it. I want to see the end results and what your idea was and how you did. Include anything else you want to say, such as the difficulty you faced or overcame. I'm especially interested in those. The things you learned, what you enjoyed in a README file. Does your face have to be in the video? No, of course not. You do not need to have your face in the video. Okay. Yep, we understand that you may not have been able to complete your original vision. We are interested in how you responded in the face of adversity. We are interested in the journey, not the destination. Where did you go? Where did you end up traveling to? Not where did you intend to go? Okay. So again, because in a senior year or junior year final project, I'd have stricter requirements, but this is a freshman level course, and I wanted you to get the chance to try something big and see, and let you see that you actually have grown a lot this semester. I also want to give you the excuse to learn things like an engine that you normally wouldn't take the chance to learn. Or to learn how to do web pages or something else. It's always great to see what people come up with in this. What I plan on so my plan is Monday, I get the projects in, and I'll start grading them as they come in, or start at least looking at them as I come in. My plan is by Tuesday evening, I want to send out the best projects. I'll send out an email to the people who got the best project, as well as a class announcement that the people who have had the best projects have been notified. If you do have the best project, you'll be exempt from the final. And what I'll be doing is but there'll be two things I'll ask, and there's going to be two things I ask you if you are selected for the best project. The first is that for the best project is that I do ask if you, I'll ask you if you're comfortable sharing your final project with the other students. Okay. In other words, if you're comfortable with me sharing your YouTube video or whatever you hosted. You do not have to say yes to that. Of course, I wouldn't be asking if you want to keep what you did private, then you can keep what you did private. Yeah. The second thing I'll be asking anybody who's exempt from the final is the first 5 questions of the final I use for data collection. So it would be extremely helpful if you did just the first 5 questions of the final, either by coming into the final or just, and then, not taking the rest of it, and then, or just, coming and meeting with me independently and doing those first 5 questions, which wouldn't take too long, but it helps me for data collection purposes for just getting those first 5 questions. Again, that's completely optional because you're exempt. Yeah. And again, what will happen is that I'll mark excused on your score. So it doesn't matter how your score ends up being calculated or how you end up doing on the final. It's not going to be worked in. Okay. Okay. Any questions on turning in the final project? Yes. Okay. If I just remembered a common question I get. What if I'm in a group with like multiple people? How do we turn it in? One person, all I need is one person to turn it in. Okay. But for the people, like the person in charge of the repo, they can link to it. One person is all that's needed to turn it in. if you're otherwise though, it is a bit easier if you like do mention like, see this person, if you worked with person X and person X turned it in, just mention that like person X is the person you turned it in and you worked with, that way it's easier for me to link and it doesn't look like you didn't submit, you aren't missing anything. Get what I'm saying? Just having a submission and just saying you worked with this person lets me know, okay, this person turned it in and didn't skip. Make sense? Okay. What about turning it in late? So barring so the final project is a hard deadline. It's like one of the very few hard deadlines I have in this class. Like this is fairly immobile. If you have a medical emergency of some kind, or like a death in the family kind of stuff, or so big event is what I'm saying, like an understandable issue, that's where it's the kind of thing where I might be able to, where I'll have some leeway. But if it's like I left it to the last moment, I didn't plan my time well, I'm not really going to help you there. I want to see what you have. It's the only way to be fair. There is a late penalty for this. It's 1/10 of a point per minute late. So you turn it in an hour late, 6 points off. So, if you're having technical difficulties submitting on Canvas for some reason, then of course, email me and let me know and like send in your submission that way. But like, that's technical difficulty kind of stuff. Otherwise, I don't want, this deadline is hard. And again, I'm interested in what you did in this time frame. And if you didn't manage to finish, that's okay. I just want to see what you got done. Now, final exam. So our final exam, the final exam schedule, final exam, Temple University, spring 2023. This is how I find it out, just like after you. I'll send this out in an email, I think by next Thursday, as to when it is. Our examination time. So first off, we want to look over here for the day meeting classes. First off, well, actually, for any exam, first thing you want to check and see, okay, is my class a common final? Which means if you have multiple sections taking the exact same final exact same time. Everybody's in this class, so no, we're just going to look over here for the 3 credit courses. But you thought this was a 4 credit course. It is. It's 3 credit hours of lecture and 1 credit hour of lab. That's why we look over here in the 3 credit hours, because otherwise the meeting times won't exactly match up. And so if we look for we meet 2 o'clock to 3:20 on Tuesday, Thursday, right? So that means your exam is on Thursday, 5/4 from 1 to 3. It will be in this room. So it's going to be in this room. And it will be other than it being in this room, it'll be of the exact same format. On computer and the rest, and the like, with access to IDLE and the like. Okay. The only exception is I mentioned those first 5 questions that I have for data collection purposes. I don't want you to run IDLE or run that code at all. Or they're going to be, so for those questions, they're the kinds of questions that if you run them, they give you the answer. There are a lot of what's the output of this code. So for the first 5 questions, we'll be going around and making sure, looking at your computer screens, making sure you're not running the code for the first 5 questions. That's all. And that's just because I want to be able to ask those kinds of questions and get some easy data collection. But at the same time, I want you to be comfortable being able to, answer the bigger questions with the tools you normally have. Okay. So what I'm saying is, please don't abuse my trust. Yes. Is that a question? Yep. Open note, open book, open as notes can be on paper, they can be on your computer. Basically, you have access to the internet only with regards to Canvas and OneDrive. Whatever your personal cloud service is. You can't like go search Google for answers, is the idea. But otherwise, like being able to look at your documentation and that kind of stuff, those kinds of things I think are very reasonable, because I mean, God knows I do all my coding by making sure I have documentation with me. You've seen me while I'm coding in class that I'll double check something to make sure I've got the right phrase, you know, and you know, I think it's a realistic simulation of the environment there. That being said, I don't want you to Google these questions. And believe you me, I've caught people, not in class, but by their answers. By the answers they submit, I've been able to figure it out. Please don't think you can out-cunning me, please. Please don't think you can. I am very tricky. I am very tricky. I am the person who will make it so that I have some questions on my exam where you can look them up and it will come up with an answer that looks correct on the Google results or on Chegg, and it'll be completely wrong. I'm that kind of guy. So please do not test me on this one. So now, so if the final exam, I believe it's worth, let's see. So if we go to our assignments, how much did I set it worth to? Edit assignment group weights. It's worth 20%. So twice as much as a normal exam. But again, the way it works is that there will be, let me go ahead and see, stop sharing. Let me go ahead and stop sharing for a second. Pause share. Okay, final exam. And I know if I do this, that it should be fairly straightforward without me necessarily. Okay, final exam. Right, so I'm going to be rewriting this so that it works better. So that's in the newer format. Right, this is the conditions I have. Students can complete the exam on their own devices or on their own lab kiosk computers. Sorry, let me resume share. Except for the first 5 questions, students may use any coding environment of their choosing, such as, but not limited to, IDLE, IntelliJ, Eclipse, NetBeans, Atom, VS Code, and Vim. All right, exam is open note, can be on paper, any amount of paper in any form, including the textbook. Notes can be on. Notes can also be notes or code stored on your computer. You can access any resource on the internet that is linked from Canvas, such as my YouTube lecture videos. Of course, if you do, check out the videos during the exam, be sure you have headphones or you're muted, You cannot use any resources on the internet that are not on their personal cloud. And don't use the input function don't use the input function. Functions get their data from parameters. Okay, there'll be 10 questions total or something similar to that. You got to answer all the first 5, the short ones. I believe there'll be multiple choice. And then select any 3 of 6 to 10, right? So for the larger questions, which will be worth 25 points apiece, you've got, I'm going to give you 5, select 3 from them. My rule for anybody who accidentally answers more than that, or tries to be game the system again. I mentioned this before. If you answer more than 3, I'll just simply grade the first 3 in numeric order. Or the first 3 questions you answer, and I'll ignore the one that came afterwards. If you want to say, or if you do want to answer it just for like to get the feedback, whether you can tell me you can let me know in a comment that which one that you wanted this one graded, or let me know in your answer rather that you don't want that one graded, but you do want to know if you got it right. So if you're that kind of person who really wants to know, yes. One runestone. Okay, yeah, I'll get to that in just a second, but thank you for reminding me. Okay, so you'll have 2 hours to complete the exam. It is solo. There's not a group portion to it. If you need extra time, I will be happy to. I'll be imposing the same late penalty I did for the final project, which is the 1/10 of a point per an hour. Which, if you think that for a second, that means that you can take an extra hour on your final exam. and only lose 6 points. So don't let the time limit get you worried. Taking 10 extra minutes, that's only 1 point less, but taking 10 extra minutes, meaning you finish up a 25-point question, that's 24-point net gain, you know? So the reason I have this entire decreasing gains thing for the final exam is so that, yes, there is a penalty for you going over, but, you know, if you need extra time, you can take it at a penalty. And at the same time, I don't want the penalty to be like highly stress inducing, because that would throw the results of the exam. So, e.g., I don't want you to worry about the time. I want you to worry about the content. Don't worry about the time, worry about the content. Does the lowest scored exam grade get dropped? Yes, it will get dropped. I just have to like finish grading the exams and then I'll program that in. But that does not include the final exam. The final exam is its own monster. Okay, it's its own category. Okay. Now with regards to, okay, so obviously you've seen that the stuff from the solo exercises and in-class exercises, that hasn't been updated in forever. Check your runestone grades. That has been being consistently updated. Basically the deadline for any of that runestone stuff, the official deadline is May 1st. That's when at some point after that, I'll run the grader one final time. And after that, that's it for the, you know, so May 1st, if you push your luck, you might be able to get through on May 2nd, you know, but just I'll be running the grader the final time on May 1st and importing everything in. And then I'll import it, and then any issues there, I will import that. Will there be a practice final exam? Kind of, sort of. I plan on going and checking what I have prepared right now, what I prepared for last semester, and be going through it today and tomorrow. So yeah, with regards to that, I'll be doing practice problems once I'm done with this all this administrative stuff. Same thing with regards to assignments. If you haven't turned in some of your assignments, right? I can only take assignments up through May 1st. After that, I'm not going to take anything submitted after May 1st, unless, you know, again, extenuating circumstances such as medical issues or the like. Although at that point, since we're that late in the semester, we would want to start looking at whether or not you needed an incomplete. Okay. Also, will there be regular questions on the final? So yes, I'll go over the content of the final exam in a bit. So with regards to the, so if you need a demo, I have limited time to help and be available for demos this week. I'm trying to, you know, write the final exams for multiple classes and coordinate things. So I have limited time to meet in the evening, but I can. But if you have like leftover demos, you know, so long as they're not like starting at the beginning of the semester, I will have time after May 3rd to kind of check anything off that you may have missed, like the pig or the Hawaiian pronunciation that you just didn't get the chance to demo, right? Okay, so if you turned it in, you know, as long as it's turned in by May 1st, I'll be fairly happy. Now, content on the final, that is an excellent question. Okay, so what content will be on the final? First off, we will have a turtle question on the final. Definitely there will be a turtle question. Okay, question. So for the kinds of questions on the final, you know, for the first couple questions, it's definitely stuff you will have seen before, like, you know, was the output of this code after we do a few loops and if statements and stuff like that. Okay, for this question, I'll have a turtle documentation question, which basically, I think I've described this before, where I give you a bunch of messy code and working messy code, and I want you to go through and answer the questions I have in the in the comments of that code to try to figure out what in the world's going on. Okay. Second question is, or another question that I've asked is list parsing, specifically dealing with either lists or list of lists, you know, so 2D lists, those kinds of stuff. So being able to parse a list and do numeric operations on that. Another, and again, these are select 3 of them. Another one is definitely a file reading question. File reading, here's a file. Something like you would have seen that you've seen on exam 2 and exam 3. Okay. And, and if you didn't take exam 3, just send me an email so that just to let me know that you're planning on taking a look, opening up the exam 3 file so you can look at the problems in there. That's perfectly fine. Yeah. Because, that way I know to, to mark it as a, to keep marking as 0 and you weren't trying to cheat or anything by like turning in the exam late. You get what I'm saying? Okay. So file reading, a Monte Carlo problem where I'll give you a board game with very easy to understand rules. I'm going to basically, the rules of the game will be suitable. I try to limit the rules of any game that we do for Monte Carlo at understandable at ages 6 or down. So I try to keep those game rules very easy to understand. And it'll be asking you like basically how often do you win, or how often or how long what's the average number of turns something might take, So again, that's another choice you can have. And then finally, I will have a regular expressions problem, something along the lines of, again, SSN replacer, you've seen it, the social security replacer, or email replacer that we've seen, or phone number, or same thing with phone numbers. Most likely I'll just make up something that something unique, like like business tax IDs or something like that. But here this is going to be similar to basically read a file and give me a new file, but with the information I don't want released to the public excised from it. Okay. And all the information that can be excised can be removed by a regular expression. Okay. So I'll debate whether I add like another one whether I'll add another one to a choice, but I want to keep I want to keep it as a few large questions where you have the ability of being confident of the ones you choose as being, that you're confident in your ability as to what you want to choose. Okay. Are we allowed to use our past exams for open notes during the final? Yes, of course you are. That is technically material on Canvas, so you're more than welcome to use that. I highly recommend for the people who, if you were in a group exam with people, try to get in contact with your group, or go ahead and discuss on Discord. I'm okay with you discussing answers on Discord at this point about exams 1 and 2. Exam 3, I think I have a few people who have a couple of makeup days, or a couple of makeups that need to be made there. So don't talk about exam 3 on Discord, but exams 1 and 2, if you want to trade around answers at this point, I mean, there's no harm in that. All right. Any other questions with regards to the final exam? I do try to give you as much information as possible about this. Again, there will be the whole rubric breakdown at the bottom. I hope you find that useful when you're taking the exam, to, seeing how I plan on grading it, because it also does, I think, give you hints and a bit of direction on where you need to go with that. So let me go ahead and see what I've got from older semesters, because I had planned on having some stuff prepared for today, but I was up until 11:30 last night working, so and I started working at like 9. It's just been a busy kind of couple of days. So let's go ahead and check it. I have a practice final here. That should work. Practice final for the problem exams, and I'll tell you whether or not it's relevant. Okay. All right, let's see. Write a script that given a text file finds and returns all the superhero words in it, which are the words that end with man, woman, boy, or girl, such as Supergirl or Batboy. It's a pretty good question. We'll come back to that in a bit. Consider the following list. Answer questions about the list. Project Euler, problem 5. Sum of digits is palindrome. Ah, this looks like a practice problem we've done before. Given two strings, write a word to see if they're good permutations of each other. That is, yeah, that is definitely a much harder problem than what would appear on the exam. That's something that we learned about in 2168. In other words, if this is CS1, we learn how to definitely do that in CS3. But that's definitely a doable with our dictionaries, and I'll definitely be happy to go over that. Below average, given a list of numbers, return a new list of all the numbers from that list that are less than the average. That's a good question. Return the sum of, given the name of a text file, return the sum of all the numbers in text file. Each line of the text file is composed of integers. For example, might look like this. All right, those are all good starting points to go over for us to go over for questions, I think. Yes. Did I? Or can I? Can I? Let's see. Let's go ahead and do that, shall we? Announcements. Exam. So practice. Final. Practice final problems. We may find more to come as we do this. So let's see, media, course media. Let me see if I can find it. Final. No, that's media, not documents. Insert document. Course documents. Final from 2021. Interesting. Is that the only ones we have? Course files. Let me go ahead and just make sure that I'm going to go ahead and just upload this one to make sure that, because that way I wouldn't know if I'm sharing the same one. Practice final. Submit. Okay. There we go. And publish. So you should be getting there. I'll see about adding more, but for today, this should be perfectly fine, I think. Again, try to get things to you a week before the exam date. So Thursday, I'll try to see if we need more problems, I'll provide them for you. Because certainly we don't have any Monte Carlo problems in this, I don't think. So we definitely want to check a couple Monte Carlo problems. Okay. So write a script that, given a text file, finds and returns all the superhero words in it, which are the words that end with man, woman, boy, or girl, such as Supergirl, Batboy. So this is similar. So this is kind of regular expression problem. We can do it with regular expressions, but we wouldn't be using sub to do that. Right? A lot of the stuff we've done with the RE library, RE Python, has been dealing with re.sub. And this kind of question, this was from a semester where I went a bit more detail into all the functions you could do with this. It wasn't re.sub, but let's see. I believe it was, and now I know what it is, find all. Return all non-overlapping matches of pattern in string, such as So here, find all things that begin with /b, f, and then any number of A to Z's. So that's a very interesting one over here. It might be useful, which is, what is /b? /b is for boundary, which is like, spaces and starting points or the like. But anyway, but find all, given a string, finds foot, fell, and fastest, which are all words that begin with the letter A. So let's go ahead and look at that one. Idle. All right, so, all right. So, and then let's look up, and then let's go ahead and open up regexer to help us. All right, and again, typically for the final exam, for a lot of these ones that deal with files, what I'll do is is that I've got in some test files written, some test input and output files, which basically say, if you run your program on this file and it matches my output file, then it almost certainly works. Then what you have almost certainly works. Unless you like hard coded it or didn't actually read the file, then you're going to be fine, right? Hard coding mean, okay, you calculated the answer yourself and outputted the answer yourself. That's what hard coding is. So, okay. So we wanted to look for something that was, that ended in like a classic superhero term, like 80s, 70s, 60s superheroes, which is anything that ends with boy, girl, man, or woman. So boy or girl or man or woman, technically we would say, that works, any one of those. So and let's go ahead and for right now, we'll say case insensitive. That's a flag we can make. So if I go again, Batman, it matches the man in there. Bat boy matches the man in there. It matches there. Man boy, that matches both man and boy in there, right? So we've matched. So here we can use the or to in our regular expressions to match these strings, right? To match these. So we can say one of these things, and then we need something before it, or like we need to be able to match any kind of stuff before it. So like, and it should be letters. To me, this does not, one man does not look like a superhero name to me, right? Should probably be letters. So for that, we can use A to Z. And we want at least, one of those. That's what the plus means, at least one. Can't remember plus, you can always use this, the brackets, the curly braces instead, and say at least one of those. So let's go ahead, but this should go with Supergirl, Batman, Robin, unfortunately left out of this, but he really gets the short end of the stick until he's Nightwing anyway. So let's see. And Bat Boy, and then of course Man Boy actually will register as all one thing now, which seems to make sense, but this seems to be the regular expression that we want. Okay. So what we can do is that we can now create our script. Create our script, and our script will say we want given a text file. So we'll write it as a function. It says that takes in a def file name. Sorry, def get supers. And then we'll say the pattern is equal to, just so I can save this, I'll save the pattern is equal to this. And I always like to use the R over here to just say this is a raw string. Just treat it. Remember, R for raw string and regular expressions. That's what I like to do here. It will it means that you don't have to worry about how the backslashes are going to work. That's what it means. Import RE. So, and then we'll take the file name over here. File name. For line. Oh, I need to open that, of course. So text is equal to open file name /R. And remember, when you're testing your code, which is part of the reason why there's only a few problems on this. When you're testing your code, remember, you're going to get an error unless the file you're testing is in the same directory as the file you're writing, right? Otherwise, you're going to have to use an absolute path, which is annoying. So file name, read pattern for line in text. Let's go ahead and get that line, and then we can then say, and then we can just simply say words are equal to line. Actually, we should be able to do this. I'm just thinking about this because if we're assuming it's normal English, then it would make sense that we can just simply go into this right now and do re dot find all, which is the one we want, and pattern. We're going to look in this pattern. We're going to look for this pattern in this line. And then and that's going to return a list according to our documentation. And in case you missed that, it says return a list of all non-overlapping string matches. In other words, you know, it's going to look for one thing. It's not, if there's like man, it's not going to split it up. Okay. So, results are equal to this. All right, I'm gonna leave this in here. And we will test this because I'm doing something intentional here. Results is equal to find all, and then return results. So let's go ahead and save. I'm going to save this in on my desktop. Final practice. Okay. Actually, let's save it in GitHub. Classroom. Intro. Final practice. And then let's go ahead and write a silly file to go along with this. Let's see. That is the best superhero of all time. But Mr. Incredible is pretty awesome too. Love the movie The Incredibles, you know? Let's see. And then let's just, you know, rather than trying to write up something else, we'll go ahead and just simply say, we'll just put in some test cases. Here is, you know, so here is Superman. And that girl. So that we can just test this, we'll save, and rather than saving this as a Python file, I'll save it as a text file. We will call it let's call it super.txt. Okay. And yeah, super.txt. And what we'll do here is that I'll say print get super.txt to test this. And we'll see that actually that I've got a lot to work on over here. It just gave me back man girl. That seems less than useful. Okay, so obviously I'm doing this wrong. What? Okay, so let's go over a few things then. First, there's a problem with my regular expression, which is that I'm using these parentheses here, which mean basically that I've got a capture group going on. Meaning if it assumes that if I'm running it, I only want what's in the parentheses. as opposed to the whole regular expression. Like it matched it, but it only wants to return the bit in the parentheses. So a couple ways around that. So in other words, you might want something like this, is what it's saying. Cancel. Where I've just copy pasted that. And it gave me Uberman and @girl. Another issue is, of course, capitalization. I capitalized all my superheroes, and I didn't account for that. Okay. Okay, so there's a couple ways we can do that. The first is by throwing a flag in. So there's a couple ways we can do that. The first is that we can, we can convert everything to lowercase, line.lower over here, and then it converts it like that. Another thing we can do is that we can put instead what's called a flag, to symbolize that it's case insensitive, like I was doing when I was making my regular expression. See over here, it says flags is equal to 0. See, and then, so the way that works, I believe, would be flag dot re dot, see, re dot I. So what we would do to ignore the case is that we can put re dot I over here, and it should ignore cases now. Pretty useful. re dot I to ignore the case. Okay. But also I'm only getting Superman and Batman. And this is because in my text file, I've made a very deliberate, in my program, I made a very deliberate error, which is I have this results is equal to, and it's just simply, I go through the line, get the result stored in here. Then I go to the next line, go to the result stored in here. In other words, I'm updating the latest line, but I'm never saving all these results with the previous line. So fortunately, you can concatenate fortunately, we can concatenate our results with our previous results, right? Let's see, results plus the, oh, right. Of course, you have to declare it first. It's something I love about Python is that you can add strings together. Add strings and add lists together and it doesn't, let's see, result. Oh, of course, you have to actually name everything correctly, results versus result. So Batman, Superman, and Batgirl, those were the 3 targets that I put in. So so first off, to ignore the case, I did re.I. This is going to be, I deliberately crafted this answer that I was writing to have multiple issues with it, just to kind of show you the different things to maybe consider. Lowering case things, that's fine. You're probably not going to have to worry about that on the exam or anything like that. This one was the most difficult one, though, which is the fact that you've got, like, in terms of what we wanted to do, we had to make a major change for doing the capturing, I guess, which is that ideally I'd like to do this. Girl, A to Z, boy or girl or man or woman, one of those. And let's see if we just put a parentheses around the whole thing, if that helps. Kind of helps. Gives me Batman and man, Superman and man, and Batgirl and girl. Basically, it's telling me, okay, I give you the whole thing you wanted plus the part in there. And for this part, we can fix that fairly easy by iterating through the list and grabbing only the first item in the tuple of each of those and extracting that. So there's all sorts of things there. Don't worry, you won't have anything that kind of annoying on the exam. I try to avoid those kind of issues on the exam. But just in general with regular expressions in Python, just know that it assumes that when you put in parentheses that you want to care about what's in parentheses. Okay. Overall, though, this worked. moving on to the next problem. RE.I, that was to ignore the, that enables me to just ignore cases. You know, I don't care if it's uppercase or lowercase. There's all sorts of like flags you can put in here about like what do you care about when you're searching for. Okay, next problem is just a couple of selections. Okay, and yeah, we're not going to get through all these today, obviously, because there's only 20 minutes left, but I'll try to get some more I'll try to get more Monte Carlo problems and make sure that they're relevant for the exam here. But I just want to go through a lot of the administrative stuff today rather than Thursday when everybody's probably scrambling with their last minute questions. So considering the following list, which is a list that has the list 1, 2, 3, the list 4, 5, 6, the list 7, 8, 9, and list 10, 11, 12 in it. So what is the value? What is the length of LL? I call it LL because the list of lists. And I did you no favors here by making sure it was by making sure I didn't break it up with any spaces whatsoever. Because I'm nice like that. So the length of this list is well, it's a list of lists. How many items are in this list? And the answer is 4, right? There's the first list, that's an item, the second list, the third list, and the fourth list. So the length of this list is 4. Make sense? Okay. What is LL index 2? LL index 2 is the thing that's located at index 2 in the list. This is index 1, sorry, index 0, index 1, and index 2. So it would be 7, 8, 9. It's the entire list 7, 8, 9. It is not 3. It is not 3. Even again, you want to make sure you understand how your nested lists work. What is the sum of LL2? It's the sum of all the things in there, which would be 7 plus 8 plus 9, which is 30 minus 3 minus 2 minus 1, so 24. All right, Project Euler problem 5. Project Euler, fun website for if you really want to hone the mathematical side of computer science, then Project Euler is your friend. Okay, so 2520 is the smallest number that can be divided by each of the numbers 1 to 10 without a remainder. Right? So in other words, 2520 is divisible by 1, obviously, because everything is divisible by 1. It's divisible by 2 because it's even, divisible by 3 because 2 plus 5 plus 2, summing up the digits. If you sum up the digits of a number and it's divisible by 3, then the whole thing is divisible by 3. So 2 plus 5 plus 2 is 9. So this number is divisible by 3. It's divisible by 4, divisible by 5. I mean, you can see because it's divisible by 4 because it's a multiple of 20. Same with it being divisible by 5. It's divisible by 6, 7, 8, and 9 as well. And 10, obviously, because it ends with a 0. So smallest number that can be divided by each of the numbers from 1 to 10 without any remainder. What is the smallest positive number that is evenly divisible by all the numbers from 1 to 20? Okay. This is not asking you to like find it using any clever math. This is asking you to find it by writing a program to find it, because trying to find it by hand, that seems like, you know, pain. It's probably not, and it's probably not 1 times 2 times 3 times 4, you know, it's probably not 20 factorial, you know, which is multiplying all those numbers together. You know, this number, I don't think that's 10 factorial, certainly not. Come here, idle, for a second. You know, oh, I don't have factorial, but you know, 10, I can mean like 10 times 9 times 8 times 7 already brings us up to a number that's much bigger than that. So it's not all the numbers added together, so we can't just skip that way. We actually have to go. So obviously the way to go about this is to just test all the numbers from 1 going up until we find the number. right? There's got to be a number that's divisible by all the numbers from 1 to 20. Just stands to reason, because 20 factorial will be divisible by all those numbers. So for this one, we want to just, so this one we can just go and search upwards. So let's go ahead and everybody understand the premise of this one? It's a boring math problem. And one that I find interesting though, but it's one that tests modular arithmetic. So obviously I like it because I'm all about modular arithmetic. And so security research loves it. Okay. Which reminds me, I have to look up what I was being told about RSA. Okay. Okay, so we went ahead and put the problem over here. So what we want to do is let's go ahead and set n, our current number, is equal to 2520. All right, we'll just start testing there. Obviously, the number's probably gonna be bigger than that. So we'll start there, and we'll say, while, we'll go ahead and rather than saying while true, I'll set up a while not done loop, which is one of my favorites ways of doing this because it's readable. So done is equal to false, while not done, do the following. And when we're done doing the following, we'll return n. We'll return that number. Okay, so what we need to do is we've got to test this number and check if it's divisible. So first things first, I'm going to speed up the testing. I'm never going to try dividing it by 1, and I'm never going to try dividing it by 2. Okay, I'm never going to try dividing it by 1 because it's got to be. In fact, I can actually speed that up a lot. But I'm never going to try dividing it by 1 or 2 because everything's divisible by 1, and I can just make sure that I'm always doing an even number by incrementing by if I don't find the number, I can always increment the number by 2, right? But I can go a bit further and just increment it by 20 every time because this whole number is divisible by 20. And our final number has to be divisible by 20, right? So I could just keep increasing it by 20 each time, right? It's all the numbers in between that we kind of worry about. So regardless, what we'll do is we'll say for divisor in range, start for up through 3, but not including 20 because we kind of already have the whole 20 baked into there, right? So let's see. So we want to check for this. Let's see how we really want to do this. So what we'll do is that we will say, we'll assume it's, okay, this is what I know I'll do. I'll say done is equal to, I'll assume that I found the number. Okay, done is equal to true. I'm going to assume that I found the number. Okay. And what I'll do is that I'll say, okay, I'll test all the numbers. And if let's see, n mod divisor is not equal to 0, if we get a non-zero result, I'll say, yeah, we aren't in fact done. Done is equal to false. And then what we'll do is that we'll just simply move this increment value up to the top. So what I'll do is I'll increment by 20. look for the next, and I'll assume that I found the right number. If my, and if we find that the number is not divisible by one of the numbers from 3 to 20, right? If it's not divisible by all the numbers between 1 and 20, then we will say we're not done yet. If we are done, we'll stop. So let's see how this one works. Euler 5. And here we go. Hopefully it's going to work. Otherwise, I've messed something up. It's always possible. Nope, I found a number. Great, it just took a bit. Probably wasn't the most optimal way to do it. In fact, I'm pretty sure that there's more optimal ways to do this, and I was just simply eking out by the fact that I'm going up by 20 each time, and I am also got a fast computer, because all these division operations, they take a lot of time. So this number is divisible by, I mean, we can test, we can see, hey, what happens if you divide by 19? And you'll see that we get an even result. And you can test for each of those that will get an even result, you know, a good result for each of those. So this is pretty, so yeah. The hardest part about this is, like, as you can saw, I was thinking about, okay, what's the best way to, like, keep this simple? Again, now a couple of things you didn't want to do was, like, this all basically, when we're looking for things like this, you often want to think about, like, what am I looking for? Process, you know, am I trying to prove something is true or false? And I should assume one of the things. I should assume it's true or false, and then try to prove by contradicting it, by contradicting my assumption, which generally is useful. Let's see. Some digits, we've done that one. Let's go ahead and go. Palindrome is boring, to be honest. We can do that one in one line. I'll leave that to you to figure out that one in one line. Let's see. I know that one. I just want to, let's go through this one, and I'll skip, and I'll do, and I want to make sure I have plenty of, I've only 8 minutes left, so I want to make sure I have plenty of time for this one. Okay, and I give nice hints for that one, so you might want to try it. Below average, this one's a good one because there's a lot of ways to do this one. There's a bunch of short ways to do this. There's, you know, a short way to do this one, as well as a longer way to do this one. But what this one says, hey, below average. Let's go ahead, given a list of numbers, return a new list, right? Here we go, below average. And now, okay. I'll call this output is equal to blank because we're going to turn new list. And we're going to return that list, return output. Right? Now what do we do? So what we need to do is find out what the average is. Now there's a couple of ways we could go about finding out what the average is. The first way is if you've, memorized your built-in Python functions, you can say, well, the average is the sum of all the things divided by how many things we added, which is the length of our, so it's the sum of the list divided by the length of the list. That's our average. And okay, but what if I'm, I'm taking an exam, and if I'm taking an exam, it's very easy to forget very simple things out of just being stressed out of your mind. Right? And that's why I try not to have things that just have, unless it's like a problem like the regular expression, I try to make sure that you can solve them by figuring out, a good way to do so. Even for the regular expression one, you could write a lengthy program that has a bunch of if-else statements in it. A bunch of if statements and a long, complicated Boolean expression. it's just going to be long, whereas the regular expression is going to be nice and concise, right? Here, though, again, I try to make it so that you can do things in more than one way. For and in numbers, we'll say average is equal to 0. Num items is equal to 0. And what we'll do is we'll just simply say average. I'll just simply say total plus equals n num items plus equals 1. So for every item, add it in and say I counted an item, and then the average is equal to the total divided by the number of items. Right? Did this take longer? Yes. Would I mark you off for it? No. It's a matter of what you decide to do in the moment. It's going to work. Okay. But unfortunately, there's not really a way to do this without essentially calculating what the average is first. You can only move on to the next problem. I like this one because you have to recognize, oh, I actually can't do this all at once. I have to do one thing then another. It's actually, and that's actually very useful to recognize. So for n in numbers again, if n is less than the average, then rather than output, then we don't add it to the numbers. We would say output dot append. Okay, so for this one, we can test very, very simply, which is that we can create something that we know the average of. Like we know that if we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, the average is going to be 3. So we would want 1 and 2 in this. And we can test this out by, making sure it's not like an order thing by swapping the numbers around. Okay. Beating it a known average again for the final. Again, for a lot of these for the final, I'll try to tell you what the answer is. The Monte Carlo, I generally don't, but I mean it's the Monte Carlo is there can some that's a different one. I mean, if it's a scam game, you'll know that your chances of winning are definitely less than half. If it's something though that that's fair, then it should probably make think about the target audience and that kind of stuff. All right. So that's 318. So definitely next time, the problems I'm going to go over are sum of tens, this file reading question, and this one's just useful for this dictionary one is just useful for the amount of stuff that we have to do with it. All right. And please, I recognize that how hard some of you have worked this semester. So just, I've noticed. So if you have questions with regards to the final, to Runestone or anything, please feel free to ask those on Discord, and feel free to share your answers with Runestone on Discord with other people. Runestone is the thing I don't care about, like coordinating or asking about, especially when there's problems that give people errors. Okay. And if you feel, and if your Runestone grade, if we get to the end semester and your Runestone grade is incorrect, just let me know, like you did stuff, but it doesn't seem to be registering, or you tried it and you couldn't just get it. Please let me know, and I'll just manually, fix that for you. Okay. All right. Stop.